Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
I'm less caffeinated today, so.
I thought you were.
right.
I thought you were singing one of the hits.
What hit? What could I pull off?
I don't know. Tarzana Boy?
I don't even know what that is. What the fuck is that? Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched In a Violent Nature. Just give him the fucking locket. Just give him the locket.
Just give it to him. What's the problem?
Yeah.
We're out here
over.
in nature, and it's violent.
It is pretty violent.
It's pretty violent.
Animals don't get too hung up on reason. They just keep killing.
Some would say too violent. I saw this at Universal Studios.
Oh, man.
I saw this at City Walk.
I also saw this at an AMC.
Nice. And it was like a lot of horror people, obviously.
Yeah. Because this has been getting some buzz. I think it was a movie that deserves more hype.
I think it was. It was, unless the trailer immediately got hits. Whenever a trailer immediately gets hits, I can't put it on deserves more hype.
That's true. I thought it was, but either way, I remember we talked about it on a Hypecast. We've been sort of like jazzed about watching this one.
Yeah, it's not rated or it's NC-17, which is to say, the audience I was with was a lot of older, more seasoned horror people.
Yeah, there weren't any showtimes during the day yesterday. There's like one at 5:00 today, but but otherwise I had to see this at like 7 or 10.
Which is interesting. I mean, we'll get into it because I will say I was just saying all that to say that this audience made noises at a certain point. Everybody went, oh.
Yep. There's a few of those.
So we're technically going to spoil this movie, but I feel like Tom, would you agree with this? Is that like the mystery around this movie it's kind of hyped for being gruesome, and it was kind of hyped for its gore.
Yes.
And so the real mystery is like you sort of know how a slasher plays out, but like the question, of course, is how brutal is this movie? The other question is, how did you like this movie, Tom?
I mostly loved it. I think so too. I mostly loved it. I think they chickened out at the end. They bailed. They bailed at the end. We'll talk about it because I appreciate what they were doing, and I see the value of doing what they did. Meaning when they switched the perspective, I understand why that happens, and I understand the value of it because it creates an interesting level of suspense. And it's like, but like
a grounding of humanity a little bit,
But the big hook for me wasn't that it was gruesome. The big hook for I remember for us when we talked about it was the fact that the movie follows the slasher's perspective the entire time. Like we start with him in the ground, and they take his mother's locket, and it resurrects him, and he crawls up out of his grave, and we stick with him for the next like hour and 10 minutes. Most of the soundtrack of the movie are his just really heavy footsteps.
Yes, there's only music when someone's playing music.
Yeah.
There's like the first scene. Oh yeah, go. I know where you're going with this. So yeah, keep going.
Oh, it was just like, so we got to see all the tropes. Like they were going through all the tropes from the killer's point of view, but the only one we don't get to see is the final girl. We don't get to see him get his ass kicked at the end. We didn't get to see that. I understand that they were going for something different at the end there. It just felt like, if you're gonna do this, do it all the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm of two minds. Yeah, because
same.
What I expected, because of learning that it's from the killer's point of view, what's interesting is that because of that, it sort of plays out like a hero's journey. You forget about this, but they do get these movies usually get the better of the killer at the end. Mm-hmm. So like that's like a third act thing where you're like, oh no, the killer, because at a certain point you're following him. You know, he's not a good person, but he's not a bad person. That's sort of the point. It's like he's an animal.
It's kind of like following a bear.
Yeah,
a violent bear.
Yeah, and so when like the ranger shoots him and he's lying there, I was like, oh, this is neat. This is like a third act. I actually thought when he was like chain him up, that they were going to get him chained up and we were going to be watching him almost get defeated.
Yeah.
And it would be like, oh, no. Like I also was hoping I don't know if we needed this, but I was, because the movie answers all the questions, but I was hoping there would be some sort of like revelation about him.
They do make it ambiguous
from the perspective. Yeah, they don't really do any of that. And again, I also mostly loved this. I'm not really complaining. I'm more talking about like what I expected versus what the movie gave me. You know, because the only time the movie shifts perspective at first is he's watching the teens at the fire, and then the camera kind of goes into them.
But he's still there.
He's still there, exactly.
He's there watching this.
So you kind of, it's like, okay, it's almost like a cutscene in a video game. Like this movie is kind of like a video game.
Very much, yeah, very much so.
And they fudge it, but they are setting up the fact that the perspective will shift at the end by doing that too. Because it is like a light perspective shift, right? It's, okay, we're not following him. He's in the scene, but we're watching these kids.
Yeah, but we still know he's there. We know he's standing at the edge of the campfire watching them, and
they set up the picture thing. Which is great.
The picture, I loved hearing that. I want to talk about that too. But at the end, you're right. They do kind of brace us for it, so it's not that jarring. So when they initially switch to the final girl at the end, at least I was kind of thinking, oh, he's still there. Like he's still close by. But after a while, you realize, oh, we're sticking with her.
Yeah.
So at first, what I thought that was going to mean, since they switched to her, I was like, oh, okay, we're following the violence. Okay, so he's done killing. So now we're switching to her because now she's going to kill him because that's what happens in these movies. Right. I thought that's what was happening. But that's not what happens. They do it to, the thing you were saying, but it made it, the suspense of the final, like the Texas Chainsaw ending where she flags somebody down, she's riding in the truck. Like that was pretty tense, and it was in an interesting way specifically because we'd been with him for the entire movie, and now we don't know where he is. Yes,
it's suddenly like, oh shit.
Yeah, now we're worried.
And it ends kind of ambiguous. I will say, like in a way, it is kind of the violence if you think of like the pure trauma. Like she's hardened.
Yes. Oh yeah, she's pretty shattered by this.
Yeah, she's completely changed when we see her, which is really abrupt in a good way because we aren't with those characters for most of the movie.
Yeah.
I love how much this movie realized how sophisticated audiences are with general narratives, where it's like we kind of get the whole story of the teens.
We do. That's the thing I was flagging. I wanted to talk about is you can picture the entire movie that's going on, like in the background, and they just do it by just doing the archetypes, pretty much.
Yeah,
you don't need that much.
Where it's like, where the one guy, the first death, well, not the first death, but the first teen that dies, where they're like, you're going to hang out with those gas station girls, aren't you? And they start like taunting him, the fill me up, which felt like an 80s movie kind of taunt. And then he fucks off. And then like, okay, they're going to think that's where he went.
Uh-huh.
So we know why they aren't going to leave right away. And then there's two girls by the lake. And you're like, those are the gas station girls, aren't they? And they're like the floozies. They're like the
they were part of the group.
Were they part of the
group? Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were the gas station girls.
No.
I will say one thing, and this is this sounds like a really... I hate saying this because it makes me sound like a creep, but the one thing missing from this movie was gratuitous nudity.
Oh, we just don't get to see it.
Yeah, I guess.
I think you hear some people have sex, or that it's pretty inferred, but like
Jason kills people while they're naked.
That's true.
Right
that's true.
But it's not a Jason movie, so
no, it's not. You're right, though. That is like if I was ticking off the tropes that it didn't hit. But I mean, why are we taking it to task for that? But yeah, that would be the other major one. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I have really no hits against, like, ultimately I have no criticisms of this film.
Not really.
It's more of like my expectations versus what the film was, where I'm like, okay, it's a little different than what I thought, but it's still very similar to what they're advertising. In fact, yes. I think I haven't looked at how audiences have liked it, because I wonder if most people didn't know what they were going to sit down for. I got one walkout. I saw one walkout. I think it's like, it's this combination of very slow.
What part did they walk out at?
Oh, you know the part.
The yoga part?
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is funny, because the yoga part,
You'd think that would be the one where they'd be like, oh, well, I've got to stay.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this movie is gnarly. Okay.
The audience was like upset, and they made upset noises. I laughed because it was so over the top that I was like, this is amazing.
It was grotesque. It was very gratuitous. Oh.
Yeah. So the killer has a hook with a chain on it.
They're called
like a scorpion.
They're called drag hooks. According to the ranger fire station museum that he takes them from. I think I've seen people talk about this, I think erroneously on social media, as the bear trap kill, because there is no bear trap kill.
There's no bear trap.
So it must be this one, because it kind of looks like a bear trap, but it's just two hooks on it, either end of a chain.
I'd argue this is the second most gruesome kill. But
I'm curious which one you think is the first.
Okay. Because this one is so over the top. This is the one that the reviews described as like a Mortal Kombat
fatality, because it fucking is.
Yeah. He shoves the hook. Yeah, he bursts the hook through the woman's torso from behind. So the hook on a chain is coming out of her stomach. She turns around and he pulls the hook, threads the chain through her torso, and stabs her in the skull with the hook.
Yes.
So she's pretty much dead. She's like, it's very silly because she's still standing.
Yeah, and then
I believe she turns around again, because then
he's spinning her around at this. Yeah. She's dead on her feet at this point.
Yeah, and he pulls the chain through her body, and it cracks her neck, and her head folds down through her own torso. He pretzels her.
He ties her in a knot through her own stomach, basically.
Yeah, and what makes it work is that it takes time. It takes like a minute, it felt like.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is
really
as realistic. Out. Yeah.
And they show the bones cracking, and like it is fucked up.
Yeah.
It is grotesque.
I thought my personal one that was like, ooh, and it was so well shot too, the ranger death, where he paralyzes the ranger.
See, I thought that was too drawn out.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I thought they were cheating for time a bit there.
Okay. See, I like the brutality of that. Slow, because the ranger's paralyzed, so he's still alive, but he can't scream. You can see his eyes move.
Yeah.
And he drags him inside to a log cutter, and he cuts off his arm, and it's real slow, because it's just this machine that you, like,
it's a log
pull
splitter.
His handle.
It's a log
and
splitter,
it goes,
it takes a very long time.
Yeah. And so he slowly cuts off his arm, and then you can still see his eyes moving, and then and it's all this one shot, which they do a great trickery. Did you notice? He keeps going in front of the camera, crossing over to get the body, and I believe every time he crosses over, it's the actor being dragged, and then when he crosses back over, clearly it's like some sort of practical effect where it's like it rack focuses too. Mm-hmm. So they're replacing parts of the actor or the whole actor, I believe, with a dummy in those shots. There's definitely also some CGI here if that was used very well.
They blend some of that too, yeah. Like when he smashes Troy's head with a rock.
Yeah, and when he pretzels her, I believe a lot of that was practical, but some of the, I think, like when he puts the hook in her. Again, it's a really good blend. At least it looked like a really good blend of practical and CGI.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably pretty limited on account of this being I assume, a very low budget film.
It seems like it. Yeah, they spent most of the budget on the gore.
Yeah, because what do they got? The woods,
Yeah, it's just the woods. Yeah. And a ranger station.
Which makes it timeless, too, which I really liked.
For a second
they don't. Yeah.
You see a smartphone, so that dates it.
You do. That's what I liked, is that they didn't hide it, but it still felt timeless. Like, there are phones and modern tech, but it's very few and far in between. They make an excuse of why the guy has a cassette tape, because it's like a hipster thing.
Yeah.
She says, like, you'll impress her with your old-timey music or something. I forget what they say.
Yeah, it's something like his old-timey, or no, I think it's his futuristic cassette player, because they're making fun of the fact that they're in the country.
Right.
He's going to go talk to the gas station girl, so they're basically calling them white trash.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's just carrying around an old-school Walkman.
Yeah. All right, so just talking about the beginning. So, again, very simple. The first shot is of, like, you're not even quite sure, but it sort of slowly pulls out to this locket on a post. And you hear the guy tell the story, basically. You overhear the teenager saying something like about the killings that happen. And someone picks up the locket, just a hand, and walks away. And immediately you kind of know, like, okay, the locket triggers it.
Yep.
Got it. And then they start telling little vignettes. So we start with the killer. He's walking. Like you said, it's most of the soundtrack is just him walking through the woods. He doesn't have his mask. They tease his face, but they do show it.
They do show it, yeah. And
eventually,
I liked when they showed it too, because it was kind of, I don't want to say shocking, but it kind of was, because it was so much earlier than I would have thought. Like it's kind of at the midpoint when you see his face.
It's his moment of, like, humanity.
Right, yeah, when he sees the toy car on the keychain.
Did you get because, all right. I give it my own head canon, is that this is the child in the body of his father. That's how I interpreted it. Because it's the idea they tell this story of this young boy who died in the fire, and then his father also died.
Right, but then they tell a different version of the story. We hear, like, two different versions of the story, and then we hear that the ranger says, like, yeah, most of it's true. But you get the sense that, like, there's more to it, so it's kind of muddied what actually happened to him and what he is.
Right. One of the things I like about this is that it feels like this is a sequel.
Yeah, it does.
Like there was at least one other movie, maybe even several. So you get, like, when the ranger's like, "You remember me?" where it's like, "Oh yeah, he's like our Tommy Jarvis." Like, yeah,
it doesn't do quite as well as Tommy Jarvis.
No, he does not. I mean, Tommy Jarvis didn't do that great either.
Tommy Jarvis managed to not get his spine broken, though.
However, that's true.
He does end the movie floating face down with the Crystal Lake on fire.
Yeah, he sure does. And then he's gone.
His sunken boat.
He does survive, but it's funny that he just fucks off. He just goes to Florida.
You would after that, after taking an L that hard.
Reading the newspaper about Manhattan being attacked by a man in a hockey mask, just like, not my problem.
Yeah, like the lady, she has to drag him back to shore and give him CPR, doesn't she? Anyway,
Tommy Jarvis, yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
very funny. So, like, I love how it tells its story so efficiently, and then we have him walking, and he comes upon a corpse of a coyote in a trap. Or some sort of animal in a trap.
Possibly a deer. Yeah. Because that's another origin story that we hear, is that, like, he was a kid who got caught in an animal trap.
Right.
and it was something about the trapper trapping deers or something. So we hear a couple of different legends, which I really liked that.
I do like that
because it gave it that air of just a little bit of the unknown to it that made it a little bit creepier.
Yeah. But then I like this little note where it's like, okay, he looks down, he sees the body. He looks up and he sees the hunters, the camera.
Trap cam, yeah.
Yeah.
The trail cam.
And then he looks and he sees trail flags. So he follows them.
Yep.
It's like such a really nice little natural progression of like, you think about how does Jason function? It's like he's sort of just looking at what's in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he hears a horn honking.
Yeah, and he starts hearing the horn and he goes towards that. Yeah. Later he hears the teens' music, so he goes towards that.
Yeah. And they do this really efficient idea where he's slowly walking towards these two guys talking in front of a house, and you hear it's clearly a cop threatening a man about his traps, his animal traps in the woods. And then it's very efficient because then he goes into the house and he looks and he sees a locket and he goes to grab it and the guy attacks him.
Shoots him.
He shoots him. And then the guy runs off, and then you hear screaming, and sure enough, he's caught in his own animal trap. And you're like, oh, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. That told a little story.
Yeah, because that's the only bear trap kill, so I feel like that's probably not what they were talking about on the social medias. But yeah.
No.
And
they do a good match cut there where he's reaching towards him, and then they match cut to his hand covered in blood, reaching towards the locket that says number one motherfucker, and he looks at it and drops it. And so you know, like, instantly, like, okay. He's looking for his locket.
He's locket driven. Yeah, he's locket motivated. And I love the little bit that they do where he looks in the mirror and we get that little vignette with we just see his dad's torso and the back of his head as a little boy. And he's like, take your mother's locket. We wear it and she'll always be with you. And then it like fades out of the mirror. It's very Evil Dead.
It is. I didn't even need that, but it was
but nice. I liked having it because now it's just like we know we didn't even necessarily need it. You're right. But I don't hate that it was there and it was very well done. And
it functions like a John Wick.
Yeah, it's like, all the motivation we need. It's like, okay, we got it. Like we know what he's about.
He has a singular purpose. He wants that locket. And that's just such a nice little efficient, like just that beginning, it's like a little short film where it's like, okay, the hunter's arc was complete. He was told not to set those traps. He was trapped in his trap.
He's clearly a fucker too, because whatever animal it was desiccated and still stuck in the trap, and it's right in front of the trail cam. So he saw it there. He never went and got it out of the trap.
He's a classic Friday the 13th character.
Yeah, he's a Friday the 13th shit kicker that Jason offs in the beginning.
They mentioned the creepy guy at the gas station too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, there's that guy. The guy who warns them. Yeah.
I kept begging. I was like, oh, please drive a car. Like there's a couple of times where he almost could drive a car.
I like how they did this stuff because that was what I was wondering about is like, okay, how is he going to teleport? And he kind of speeds up here and there a little bit.
We see him walk quickly sometimes. Yeah. He never runs, but he picks up the pace sometimes.
He lets people's panic like hurt themselves often, or I love when he goes to the house and he puts the stick on the car to make the horn
go off, and then he just does a lap around the house so he can come up behind the guy. Yeah. But he's moving quickly, like he's picked up the pace.
Yep, and he also shows up in the window for someone, so you can see like the jump scare there.
Right, yeah, we see somebody look at him at the window as he walks by. Yeah, man, the way this movie is shot is so fucking cool.
It is really cool. It's just this very...
You get so much character out of him too. It's and you get so much out of the other people too for the most part. You get like complete you can picture their characters completely just because, they're just playing with the archetypes, but it's done very well.
Right. I mean that the when they're doing the campfire stuff, one of the characters is clearly like jealous of
There's like the old boyfriend
love triangle,
and he's like haunted, and we hear him mention, oh, don't let your dad's death mess up my weekend. So we can picture this character perfectly. Like, oh, he's like the moody, dangerous one that it's going to be them two at the end. And and like the dickhead boyfriend, the sort of, there's the stoner chick, and I think Aaron, the guy who tells the story, I think he's a stoner too. Yeah. Pretty much. They just hit you with all the archetypes pretty much at the very beginning.
And so later, when one of them just throws the keys in the woods, you know exactly what kind of dumb shit.
Picturing that scene perfectly. Yeah, it's Troy the dickhead. His name's even Troy.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even need to see him to know exactly what he looks like. And then when we do see him, we're like, yeah, that's pretty much what I figured.
Yeah, because after he kills the first kid and kills the yoga death,
the two ladies on the lake,
like, and they take a group picture and they establish like, okay, the killer's in the background of that picture.
Yeah.
And
it's a great shot too, because I love that they do this a couple of times. Sorry, where you can sort of see him. You can't really see him until he moves, but they'll do like a static shot of the trees, and you're looking for him, and you know he's there because we've been sticking with him the whole movie. So like we know he's around there somewhere, but you can't quite see him until he moves. It reminds me of Hereditary a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. There's a few shots like that, which makes the ending when she's looking in the woods for him. You're waiting.
I loved that last shot. Fuck. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. Because you can see the scene where she looks at the photos later.
Yeah, where they're like peering at it, like zooming in. It's like, dong, like the low bass rattle sting. You see his fucking face.
Yeah, but all you hear is this conversation where they're arguing. And she's like, what about the photo? And he's like, it could have been anything. And she's talking about the kid who's missing. And they're like, he's probably just fucking those chicks or whatever. Like, he'll be back. So you know everything that has happened to them.
Right, and they say the two girls, the one in the lake and the yoga girl, they're like, and they're probably off somewhere fucking too in the woods. Like, what do we work so we can see this character making excuses for why people are unaccounted for? Like, we've seen this movie, so we can picture the movie exactly. It's so well done.
And you're watching the Johnny is the killer, his choices of like he's waiting for people to be on their own.
He just watches.
He's waiting for these moments.
My favorite fucking one is at the end when they have successfully tricked him. And he's walking, and then one of them steps on a stick and he stops. And then one of them starts whispering.
You hear them whispering,
and then he stops.
And they're so loud.
Yeah. And he stops and turns around, and you can see them. And you hear her say, he's looking right at us. And the other guy's like, no, it'll be fine. And he's just waiting.
I'll go around, I'll distract him. That's so good.
It's the moody, mysterious teen.
Yeah.
He pops up behind Johnny and says, hey, you ugly fuck, come again. And he just instantly turns around and pulverizes his skull with the axe.
Yeah.
And then just it does the Trident sketch. The Will Ferrell, Pierce Brosnan one. Where he just stabs the guy over and over and over again with a trident. He just continues to chop this character into hamburger. And my theory is it's because he scared him.
Yeah, I can see that.
He startled him. Like he came up behind him to distract him. Ah!
Well, I think so. I think this is where it breaks.
This is where the perspective shifts, yeah.
But it also, to me, breaks format a little bit. This is what I think is the intent of them. Because we're following this character, and we get some character progression of this ghoul. Like,
a little bit,
when they throw the keys, there's a toy car on it, and we've heard that the Johnny used to love toys.
We've also heard that he might have been a trapper that rode around on an ATV and got stuck in one of the traps.
Right.
So maybe
either way,
or he could have burned alive in that house with his dad.
Yeah, and he sits down and he's staring at the car, and this is where we see his face. He takes off the mask, and he's got like a zombie, and he is just enamored with it. And he's sitting there, and he doesn't care about them anymore. And then I forget what springs at him to crush the car.
I was going to ask you that because I'm not sure. Like something sets him off. Yes, you're hearing the conversation in the background. It's the three characters that are there's a little bit more than them left, but it's Troy and Colt is the moody teen, and the final girl whose name I forgot. But they're arguing about the keys and about whether or not Johnny's there. And Colt comes like very close to Johnny. And Johnny's sitting up against a tree just playing with the car. And he's dropped his axe. And you see Colt's on the other side of the tree. And he picks up the axe and he goes, and you hear the rest of the conversation. Oh, if it's just my imagination, what about this?
Yeah.
Something about the conversation sets him off. I think it's that, but I didn't flag it.
Could also be one of them gets on an ATV and leaves too. I don't know.
I think this happens before that, though. I thought he gets mad and crushes the car for some reason. Something sets him off.
I read it as like this brief moment of humanity coming and then going.
And then the animal comes back.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You get this vibe that there's something there, and like when he goes and gets the mask and stuff, and he's staring at it for a while, like this distant memory, you know,
right? Because we do hear
like,
a couple of versions of the story where he liked to wear a fireman mask.
Yeah.
And we overhear the Ranger say that, like, because he says it's the locket, he notices that the final girl's wearing, and he's like, "Where'd you get that?" And it's Troy.
Yeah.
Troy took it off of Johnny's grave and gave it to her. And he explains that that's what woke him up, and she's like, "Well, can't we just give it back?" He's like, "No, that won't work." So I wonder if it's like the same thing as the car, where it'll work for a little bit, and it does seem to work at the end. I don't know. I'm not sure if giving him the locket would have made him quit, or if you being around him is still gonna because the very last speech of the movie that the lady gives while she's picks up the final girl, and it's the Texas Chainsaw ending. She's talking about her brother who was a game warden who got mauled by a bear, but there's some insinuation that it might have actually been Johnny. Then she talks about this phenomena that'll happen to some animals where they get kind of like bent or whatever. I forget what she called it, but it's just how they will just kill in a widening radius, just anything in it. And it sort of describes what Jason does in Friday the 13th movies and what Johnny's doing in this situation.
Yes. Who is played, I looked her up. She's in Friday the 13th Part 2. She plays Vicky, that actress.
Which one was Vicky?
I'm looking it up. I'm trying to remember how she died.
Was it the one who gets stabbed? Was it the one who was into Mark?
Stabbed in the stomach with a kitchen knife.
Oh, yep. That's the one who was into Mark. She goes to her cabin to get ready, and she's squirting on the perfume, and then Jason Bates stabs her.
Yeah, the moment I saw that actress, I was like, I guarantee she was in a Friday the 13th.
She seemed familiar, yeah, and she does. She does it really well. Like she delivers it really good, well. Yeah.
But I was like, there has to be someone who is in a Friday the 13th.
They must have got somebody for this.
Yeah. And it didn't matter who. I'm just very happy that it's somebody. That ending monologue. But I think so. It's all to say that I think there's some character growth, because when that guy scares him and he starts chopping him, there's also this implication of it's another moment with the car where he doesn't care about her anymore. He's just it's like this anger.
He's just seeing red.
Yeah. And so you're getting this another moment of humanity, but it's in the form of violence and anger, where he's just so frustrated. He's like a sad character just chopping. And this is also something that doesn't happen in these movies. The girl slowly puts down the trap in the gas canister, takes off the locket,
leaves it on the gas canister,
backs away.
Yeah. And runs off.
She does the thing. It's like, give him the locket. Just give him the fucking locket.
It's worth a shot. Because we overhear them getting ready to do this elaborate trap, lure him back to the fire tower of his birth, burn him into the ground with the locket. And, they were going to do some ritual like they always do at the end of these movies. But then Colt gets hatcheted into oblivion for no shit about 2 minutes.
Right. And that death, besides him hacking him, that second to last death is usually heroic. It's usually more drawn out than that. So it feels like the moment he chops that guy in the face, it cuts the narrative short, where it's like, okay, it's no longer a slasher film. They're not doing the trap. And so that's why it felt like everything stops there. And it just changed. It's like she makes a different choice,
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not going to defeat
Oh, you know what? Okay, I'm not playing anymore, actually. I'm good.
Yeah. And she does the smart thing and just goes, here's your locket. I'm going. And so I don't know. I read that's why I excused the change, because I read that as this is the subversion of the tropes,
Right. It was already a subversion, though, following it.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
You could also take it as just the animal part of him, too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where he's just, as the Coens would call it, he's gone blood simple.
Yeah.
And he's just hacking away.
I agree with you, where they could have made his story sad. Like when they defeat him, we could have felt bad for him. If there was some sliver of him that we learned about that we realize, like, okay, he's been doing this the whole time. The way you feel sad for, like, an animal that gets put down, even if that animal's violent, because I mean, from the title to the ending, it's all sort of about that.
Mm-hmm.
The ending monologue about this guy going out with the bear.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
And how her brother survived just because the bear, if it was indeed a bear, thought he was dead.
Yeah.
So it just moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's about this type of animal that just kills for no reason. Like, she gives it a name, I forget what.
Yeah, I forgot as well.
And she's basically describing Johnny in that moment.
Yeah. The only hang up I had about it is I just wanted to see the finale from his perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you're doing the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, but I do still really like what they did. Like you said at the beginning, I'm of two minds of it, sort of.
Yeah, I think they were trying to say something different at the end than what we were expecting. Like, I think this is probably, upon rewatch, it's probably a more deep ending than what I was personally expecting. Because this is more
I liked that it was more abstract. I did appreciate that because the movie's already pretty weird. So, but you're cruising with it. So you're like, oh, okay, I think I understand where this is going. But then you're right. It changes at the end into something entirely different. Still in the same ballpark, in the same, wheelhouse as what we've been watching. But now it's shifted into something different that's a little more, like I said, abstract. That ending in particular.
Yeah. And it's more of like, I assume a broad observation about violence and how it affected her. And because, again, we don't see her that much. So when we see her at the beginning, she's like happy-go-lucky teen or 20-something-year-old.
Yeah, we overhear that they're college-age kids.
Right. And then by the end, she's like hardened. And it's like, you didn't need to see it from her perspective to sort of see that transition. And then the idea that she's been like completely changed from this experience and the trauma. And is it the last shots of the locket's gone. So she goes in the car and you're waiting for it to happen because they're doing all these shots where you're waiting for Johnny to pop in and kill like this woman in the car. Mm-hmm. And then she drives her and tells this story about her brother and this bear that he went out. And the I thought this was a good idea. And she's basically trying to keep her awake. So it's a nice little excuse for exposition where she's like, I'm telling you a story just to keep you conscious.
Right, yeah.
Because you're bleeding. And then she pulls over and she's like, I have to wrap this. And you think like, oh, fuck, here we go.
Yeah.
And then the girl is just looking out into the woods for this long time and you're waiting to see him.
Her POV. And we've seen, like we were talking about earlier, we've seen this shot a couple of times before in the film, and he's always been there.
Yeah, they set this idea up.
So we're so sure he's there, and then it cuts the reverse of her face, I believe, and then it cuts the final shot of starting with the bear trap and kind of panning over the gas can, and we see that the locket's gone.
Yeah. And so presumably Johnny got what he wanted, and he's moved on. Or he's on his way to Manhattan.
Yeah, I was about to say, either he reburied himself or he's going into the city to get a job at an apartment.
Yeah. The last shot should have been him walking into the city, walking into
with
Manhattan.
A suit and tie. Still wearing the weird firefighter mask, but...
Yeah. Yeah, same like over-the-shoulder video game shot of him.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been good. Walking into a Subway.
Handing them
have applications.
An application.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been fun. No, it's man, it's one of those movies. I think horror is only getting better.
Yeah.
I think back of like when It Follows came out, those years where I was like, man, horror is only getting better. And then this year I'm like, man, horror is only getting better. And it doesn't take anything away from the previous films, but it's amazing how horror to me is like the only genre that is so steeped in tropes. I mean, a lot of genres are.
Many are, yeah.
But it's the only genre that seems to understand that and play with the fact that we know the tropes, right? Like, it's surprising to me that, like, horror is the only thing that does like minimalist ideas. Like you think back of It Follows felt very revolutionary under the idea of like there's no heavy lore, right? Like I think if It Follows was made in the 2000 or early 2000s, there would be some sort of lore, right?
Yeah,
they would be
the
like
fear.com days, yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of that has to do with budget and just you can take more chances on horror films. And also I think there's the built-in sort of expectation of you can be more minimalist in a horror movie because you can still sell it because people like horror movies and they like when they are interesting or weird ideas or have some kind of weird hook.
And they know the people are there for the scares or for the suspense or for the gore.
Yeah.
And so it's a little easier. But, like, I mean, action does this, too. Action has gotten more minimalist.
Yeah.
Where they're like, you know, okay, his dog died. Go. You know, like, we've slowly discovered that certain genres you can strip almost all the narrative out of and still have plenty of narrative left over. If you just focus on the characters, you don't have to spend all this time explaining everything. I just think of that compared to like the Friday the 13th when they're explaining what happened to Jason and all that elaborate lore. And then like they start having to explain like the Book of the Dead later and like all this, you know, and like even those movies aren't like lore heavy.
No, not especially.
But there's always been that expectation of like, what is the killer? Where did he come from? And then you cut to this one where it's like, man, they give us just enough and we can fill in the rest as much as we want and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. There's also, I didn't realize it's so obvious now that one of the things this movie didn't take away by following the killer is the suspense. When he's walking towards somebody, that's just as suspenseful.
Yeah.
When you know he's going to come up on them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's even more suspenseful because you're watching a countdown, basically.
Essentially,
like, oh, shit.
Yeah, in a couple of scenes, it is kind of more suspenseful.
It's like it's the same device as It Follows, frankly, where you're watching, the characters don't see the guy coming towards you, but you see it, and you're like, shit.
It's that same dramatic irony.
Yeah, where you're just watching his perspective. It's a really cool. Man, what a cool movie!
It was a cool movie. They pretty much pulled it off. Yeah, I think this is a pretty big success.
For people who haven't seen it, it's not as boring as you'd assume. The shots of him walking through the woods, a lot of the reviews kind of describe those as. I had the understanding that those would be longer. But they give him plenty to do.
Yeah. It never feels like it's dragging, really.
Yeah, it's not in real time. They cut during him walking. We cut a lot,
yeah.
And like there's always something for him to kill, basically. There's always something for this guy to do. I love the lake kill.
That was really cool.
Yeah. So the cinematography in this is so good because, again, it's played for suspense in this interesting way where he's across from the lake. He sees these two girls swimming. They're playing out their own scene. And then he does the Jason thing. Yeah. One of the girls is swimming. The other one walks away. And he just slowly walks into the water. And he sinks. And the shot stays. It's one of those shots where I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? Do they have like people in the lake with fucking scuba gear?
He could have also cut and blended, or he could have swam. You might have seen the water, but I mean, I don't know. There's probably some compositing, like you're saying. But that's what I would assume. It's still awesome.
You stay on this wide shot, and she's in the way distance, and it makes the death creepier because it's so dispassionately like shown from afar. And she's swimming, and then she goes and goes underwater. And that's when we cut to another, and these shots are on sticks; they don't move. And
it's the stillness of it, right? It's kind of like the dispassion, or just the complete like cold and remorselessness of nature, right?
Exactly.
It's not cold or remorseless, indifference.
Yes, nature keeps going on around it in every shot. It's just these nature shots. Mm-hmm. Basically, and so when she's under the water, you just hear the birds and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, she comes up briefly once and comes back down, and then her body floats. and then you're waiting for him, and it like he comes from behind the dock, and he just like slowly comes up across the shot, and we like pan with him, and it's so simple.
Yeah.
And so well shot.
It's kind of like, movie. What do they call it? A Texas switch? It's basically what it is. He's just crouched behind the dock the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But it's a cool ass shot.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the movie, when it's not just following him, it's these like wide shots just sort of showing it all play out. In this like.
To me, I don't know, one of the more memorable parts, it's funny to say this about the yoga kill, but one of the more memorable parts, and to me maybe the cruelest part, although that is a pretty hateful killing.
Is it the wide?
It's the wide when he kicks her down the slope, and just she doesn't even make it all the way down. The body just stops halfway.
Yeah,
just gonna bake there on the side of a canyon.
Yeah, this really wide shot of this canyon.
Yeah.
I also liked how they did her death, which is that he's coming towards her. She sees it. She turns around. She's at the canyon, and she hesitates at the canyon instead of jumping. And like, it's that moment of like, do I jump? And she could probably make it if she jumped. It was like a bit of a fall.
It was a bit of a fall, but then really just like a long slope. She would have been hurt.
Yeah. And she hesitates for just long enough that he gets her.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little death because it's like she doesn't even see it. He stabs through her. And it's this moment where, like, her final moment is kind of this awkward, like, and then dead.
Yep.
And that's it. It's a nice little beat. It's very memorable kill. My goodness.
For obvious reasons, yeah. But yeah.
Well, and for non-obvious.
Right, yeah.
Like
everything around
like
it,
wide,
too. That wide was like...
It's so
Man, there's so many good shots in this movie.
Do you think they're going to give this director a Friday the 13th?
Yes. If they have a brain in their head.
Yeah, if they have a brain in their head, they should look at this and go like, all right, yeah. Where they've been trying to
do a Jason like this. Please do a Jason like this.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
That would be so much fun to do a Jason like this. Yeah.
Fuck it. That would be amazing.
Man, that would be good. You get to see him like look at all the things on the tool. I mean, we get to see a lot. We have a lot of moments with Jason already in these movies, but it would be fun to see an entire movie from his perspective.
Yeah, it would be hilarious. This is also kind of funny.
Yeah,
he's still kind of funny.
He's very Jason in a lot of ways. He's not.
Yeah. The part where he kills the first guy and then he's dragging the body, Jason style, and then he uses the body as a tool.
He uses the top half of his head to break in.
Yep, and then he smashes the body into
the display case with his body.
This is another trope that they set up perfectly because later
someone's
like,
him.
I'm going to go, there's that ranger station, we're going to go. And then you don't see but they come back and they're like, oh my God, he's dead. So you're like, they found the body. It's this classic Jason.
You can see that scene exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It's great because you know exactly what's going to happen when they say there's a ranger station. We're going to go to it.
Like, they're going to find what he left him there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What a film.
Yeah. I'm very pleased with it. Very, very fun. Everybody should see it. It's probably going to kill it in the box office, right? I don't know.
I think so, but you never can tell. I feel like it has enough gore to please more mainstream horror fans.
Yeah.
But it's pretty slow. You know, there are stretches where he's just walking.
Yeah.
So it wasn't slow to me, but I could see it being slow.
A little bit, but it's not. Yeah. I guess the walking scenes are less slow than I thought.
Yeah. And if you're into slashers, like if you're a Friday the 13th fan, you'll be giggling at a lot of these scenes of him walking. Like you'll be totally into it. You'll be like, oh, I've always wanted to see this. I've always wanted to see what he's up to. This shares some DNA with Behind the Mask. It's very different, of course, but I like those two movies. Sort of, they're both the similar idea of sort of lifting the curtain on what the killer is doing when we can't see him.
Yeah, they're like spiritual sequels.
Yeah, sort of. They're related.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this movie was fun. This was a fucking blast.
Yeah, it really was. I don't think I have much more to say about it. I'm surprised I had this much. I mean, no, I'm not surprised because it's really well made.
It's very well made.
Yeah, the cinematography is great. It's shot in like that full screen 4:3 or whatever, which I think works for this as an artistic choice. One, because I think when you think of Friday the 13th, even though those are shot pretty wide, you think about watching them on like VHS on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I like the 4:3 format to show like kind of a tunnel vision, a singular purpose, a direction. They're very good for that, where it's like we're following him, we're going straight ahead through the story. I think of there's a Ghost Story movie was shot in 4:3 for a very similar reason too, where it's like. It's kind of hard to describe, where it's like it's about the direction of the story, and he's driven and he's going forward. He's going away from the camera or towards the camera, and like that the 4:3 works really well for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
for these shots.
Yeah, it's letting you know sort of that it's a limited perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say. Everybody should watch it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have one of them Patreons, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, GAMEFULLY, unemployed. For just $5 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Those are all available for $5 of your dollars a month, so check that out.
Yeah. We also have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your natural peepers onto that.
Yeah, slap your foggy zombie peepers.
Foggy zombie peeps.
That was that Misfits song?
Probably.
I'm sure they have a fucking song. Oh, Danzig, you ghoul. You're the ultimate ghoul.
He is. They should make a Danzig movie where we just follow him like this.
Oh, God.
In
just going
a Danzig nature.
Yeah, in a Danzig. All right. Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as The Corlew, or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at artnessbyjustinbrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at starlenearts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.